it's time that you knew there's someone there who's searching for you, and it's time that you believe he's gonna find you.
Well, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Those of you who are watching us live, this is October 21st, Election Day. Question is, have you voted yet? Well, I think...
Oh, I have. And Mark, have you voted yet?
I did vote yet, and if you haven't voted yet, what are you doing watching this? Go out and vote, for crying out loud. Vote as if your life depends on it. And it does.
Very well.
Yes. So,
don't stop watching this. Take us with you. That's the beauty of having a mobile device with data. And you should definitely take us with you as you go to vote. We'd love to be there with you. Even send us a comment. Just remember, it is federal law not to take selfies or pictures of voting with a ballot. Do it outside of the station. That is actually federal law. You can't take.
Damn, I was going to do that too. Oh well, maybe another year. So those of you, why are we talking politics? We have this rule, and those of you who are familiar with what we've been doing, we have a rule on The Invisible Man and Musical Man. No religion and politics unless it directly relates to the music. This show, however, that we're talking about, that we're introducing, is a podcast, so it's going to be just audio for now anyway, available on all your favorite podcast platforms, and it's going to be only about politics. And we're calling it, if you were hanging around and saw the opening title or the opening screen there, we're calling it Two Guys Fixing the World, or Fixing the World. We haven't quite decided yet. We have the URL, the domain name fixingtheworld.ca. Website's already up. Go check that out. We'll have dates and everything else on there once we go live. So what on earth are we going to be talking about, Ryan?
Well, we're going to talk about politics, obviously, but we're going to put a different spin on things. We're obviously going to express our opinions and what we think about things, but we're going to look at things like the Canadian political system. We're going to look at different modes of political thought. We're going to look at just different things to make you, the viewer, who we're creating this for, most people who are average Canadians, just like Mark and myself, the middle class, working, maybe you're struggling, maybe you're doing okay. But we're going to give you as much information as you can to make the best possible decision for when it comes to voting. We're going to tell you, maybe share some of our experiences, and all that kind of stuff. It's just information for you, the viewer, or in this case, the listener.
Well, I mean, it's not just a matter of, the people will turn off. Actually, notice a couple of people checked us out on the stats there. A couple of people dropped off as soon as we said politics. And, don't blame them. I mean, it can be incredibly boring, and it can be, but it's actually quite a big part of our lives. Just last week, I was having a conversation with someone at work, and I just noticed that they had a note about provincial legislation on having bereavement leave, and she had just lost her mother. I know we can talk about that, but it was we only get 3 days when you lose someone that close, even if you lose a child, God forbid. And that if you care about that, that's politics. And the only way you're going to get more bereavement leave or more vacation time is by getting involved. And that's kind of really part of what we're trying to get across, is those things that change your life, those things that affect you, are almost 100% in place because of politics, or that they're taking away things from you because of politics.
That's right.
So we've got, I think we'll just talk about a couple of topics here. We're not going to give away any punchlines. You've got to watch the whole show. But we're going to be talking about the good and the bad things about various political systems or political thought. We're going to talk about time theft. We always heard that as individuals, corporations and businesses saying, you clocked out, you weren't working for 5 minutes before you clocked out. That's time. Well, you know what, when I work the extra 5 minutes and you don't pay me for it, that's time theft too. We're going to talk about all that kinds of things. We're going to kind of turn some of these things on their heads. We can talk about why privatization? Why bother? What are the pros and cons
what
of
should
that?
be privatized? Maybe the question is, should essential government services be privatized? Probably not. But are there government services that
don't give it away? Don't give it away,
right? No, that's as far as I go with that one. But that's kind of the idea to get your mind.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about austerity. Is there a good side of austerity? I mean, we'll definitely explain what that is if you don't know. Full employment, what does that really mean? Because right now, full employment can be anything from 5 to 7% unemployment, and that's considered full. So we're going to talk about all these other kinds of things. Minimum wage, of course, will come up. Hours of work, workers, cooperatives, all these kinds of things.
All those different things.
Everything. And so think of it affects your life. Odds are we're going to touch on it over the coming weeks. We're hoping for this to be a weekly podcast. Some of it's going to be current, some of it's going to be just anything that would or something that would last. You can maybe watch it next year. As current event stuff will go stale fairly quickly. It really depends on what comes up that week.
That was one of the things that we had tried to say is we're going to try and stay away from mainstream. Oh, this politician did this or this policy did this. So unless it's a direct thing that's going to be like, hey, they're overhauling Canada's labor law and now nobody has mat leave and vacation has to be accrued over 20 years and then you get your 2 weeks, like stuff like that. Obviously, we're going to have something to say about it, but we're more looking at modes of political thought. And the decisions that have been made through things like through the various parties that have been in there, when they make decisions, are they making decisions for you, the voting body, or are they making decisions that are going to benefit their buddies, their rich buddies? Because they all have rich buddies, every single one of them.
Yeah. So, and it's a matter of we're talking about power, who's got power, and what that really means, and.
Right.
There's so much, such a broad range of topics that this show is going to be about, and I think it's actually something actually quite clear. I want to get this out. I should have got this out earlier, I guess, but this isn't going to be a Trump bashing podcast at all. In fact, we're rarely going to talk about Trump at all. I mean, if you want to hear about Trump, listen to everybody else. We're only going to be interested in those things that really matter.
Yeah, that's right. And like as we just said, we're going to try and stay away from the mainstream unless it actually is going to directly affect like life for the average person, right? Like overhauling Canada's labor law, that's going to do something for everyone. So yes, we're going to obviously be looking at that. But we're not news people, we're not journalists, we're not news professionals, we're not going to go to these things. We're actually going to look at things like, oh, hey, they made a decision to raise minimum wage, but they only raised it by 50 cents. Well, that doesn't really benefit anybody except for the employer, right? But if they said, hey, we're going to raise minimum wage to $15 an hour, well, that's going to benefit a lot of people who are really hurting, right? Now, even $15 an hour isn't a lot of money in the scope of things, but it does mean that you won't have to work two jobs. Mm-hmm. It means you'll probably have to live a totally different lifestyle. You won't be living high on the hog, but you can at least get one roommate instead of six. You can, afford a bus pass every month. And before we get those kind of things.
And before we get too deep into that, we'll also be talking about what is minimum wage. I mean, it's all very well throwing terms around, right? We'll be all about kind of explaining what we're talking about while we're talking about it, not just throwing out a term and assuming that you understand it meaning one thing, but it could mean something else, something completely different to someone else. One of those things, too, is I'm a leftist, you're a rightist, whatever those words mean. I've ranted on this before on a previous show I did on YouTube, but it's important. We need to define what these terms mean before we move forward, and that's a big part of just understanding. Once you understand some of those confusing language, and the whole political game seems to become a lot clearer, a lot easier to listen to.
Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden you can start making decisions, and you were like, hey, I'm a hardline conservative, and then you dig a little more deeper into it, and you're like, maybe I'm a little bit more central, or even left of center.
Well,
And here's the thing: is we're not telling you who to vote for, and that one is particularly bad or.
Well, careful that
right?
we might, but.
Well, okay.
It'll be,
but I think it'll be obvious. I think for most people we're going to try and say that the most people would understand. Right?
Yeah, I think that. I mean, the realism is that we're not here to go after any particular political party. We are here to go after policies. We're going there to after the things that affect you, the specific things. So yeah, in a way we are, and in a way we're not. But it's the pieces that matter. Political parties are set up much in the same way that your TV station or your TV or your cable provider are set up. You've got a choice between 2 or 3, and you've got to accept the entire package, even though you don't want all the cooking channels and all the sports and everything else. You only want to watch it for Discovery, for Ancient Aliens, for instance. You have to buy all of it, whether you like it or not. And that kind of politics is the dangerous thing that we when you're saying yes for one thing, you be careful. You're saying yes to a hell of a lot more.
Yeah, that's right. And even just to pull it forward, just to turn it on, you can look at, say, Discovery. I love the show MythBusters. I'm not particularly fond of Ancient Aliens. I know you are, but I'm not particularly fond of it. I'm not saying it's bad or anything. I'm just not fond of it. But if I buy Discovery Channel, guess what? Right. I'm gonna get Ancient Aliens, and so it's the same thing, right? So you're looking at it from a policy standpoint, or this everything's involved, and that's just another example about how everything is interconnected, right? If you say I'm with this party, well, you better be prepared to know what else that party is going to stand for and what they're going to do, right? So
and I'm one of those people who will talk to their friends and challenge them and say, well, why do you believe that? Why do you think that's true? I actually had someone I was talking to in England, and he really hated Jeremy Corbyn. And I said, why? Oh, because he's swear. Well, what specifically has he done? I can tell you everything about Theresa May, and I can tell you exactly why she's horrible. But tell me why. And it was like, I can't think of anything. And I'm not picking I'm not picking on anyone, but it's that according to that personality politics. And personality politics doesn't change your life. The actual policies do. Politics do, right?
Yeah.
And when you're voting for the personality, then you might as well not even bother looking at their platform, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting is to sort of put another sort of hit the nail on the head here. When you look at a lot of things that have happened over the course, it's easy to pick on the states because they get a lot of airplay. And particularly one presidency that I find extremely interesting is the Nixon administration. And here's this hard-driving, I'm going to get rid of the beatniks and declare war on drugs, and I'm going to continue the war in Vietnam. And then he starts up the Environmental Protection Act, and he does OSHA started under the Nixon administration, which are very socialistic, like opposite sides of the spectrum. So and that I think ultimately hurt him. That's one of the downfalls that actually hurt him with his party in the States. But I mean, the point is you have to know what you have. And that was a shock to a lot of Nixon supporters that you making the Environmental Safety Act? What's that all about? We want to dump buckets of sludge into rivers. What do you mean we can't do that anymore? So that's the kind of thing that politics can do and policies can do.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, and a big part of what we will be doing is just kind of as we become aware of them, groups that are out looking to change specific things, maybe some rallies that are going on, maybe even just some groups that are getting involved in trying to make life better for other people. We'll be bringing some attention to some of those as well. I don't think we have any plans for guests on the show, but you never know. It's
entirely possible.
We'll set up for it.
We'll do that one by ear.
Yeah, for sure. And so it's really our goal would be if we are to activate anybody into action. Sorry, a little redundancy there. It would be just to put those people that are in power under pressure and let the people who have the power know that that you're not going to vote for them if they're not going to do what you want, and they should be representing us, right?
That's right.
Should be an end result to everything.
They're not there to ultimately they're part of a party, but they're not really there to represent the party. They just happen to be a part of a party that represents as much as possible your political ideologies, and they really need to be concerned about you.
Yep.
They really need to start thinking, hey, what's important to Elmwood Transcona? What's important to City Center, the area that I represent? What's more important to them? Yep. And our riding, Elmwood Transcona, is nefarious for being very close between all three of the major parties.
Yeah,
and
actually, just to let everyone know, I think that the last general election, it was 50 votes that swung it, right? It was tiny.
I think it was under 60.
Yeah.
And the Liberals took over under 60. And for most of the race, it was basically split a one third, and then whatever small percentage for the independent parties, right?
Yeah.
But that's incredible. And so then what happens is you get the Liberal who won, or the NDP won it. Bill Blakey won it last year, or the last election, and now basically two thirds of the riding feels misrepresented, because regardless of what his affiliation is, he really needs to be listening to the people who are conservative.
Yeah.
And they need to listen to the people who want to vote Liberal, because, sure, all the United Food and Commercial Workers who live in Elmwood and Transcona voted for Blakey because that's what their union said to do. And that's because they feel that he's going to protect their rights. But what about all the small business owners who want to vote for Tote, I don't know how to say his last name,
right?
Who's a conservative writing, who might be standing up for them to say, hey, we're going to get tax cuts to small business.
Yeah.
So that's a perfectly good reason for them to want to vote for him.
Yeah. And
right.
We got the other one. There's another thing as well. I'm just didn't have it in my notes, but I just thought of it looking for a pen, but I can't find one. It's this crazy notion of tactical voting. You kind of have to, but you kind of don't want to, and you probably shouldn't. But what do we deal with there? We've got in my riding, I've got Jim Carr. We've got Joyce Bateman's back, and she's a real neo-McCarthyist. That was why I voted for Jim Carr last time, was to get her out, because that was awful. She was blaming everybody of being anti-Semitic. Made the national press, and she's back in again. I can't understand why she would come back in again. But now this time, should I vote for Jim Carr again? They were promising proportional representation, didn't get it. He didn't get my vote this time because you promised me something you don't. I don't think there's a chance of Joyce Bateman getting in, I hope, anyway.
Not only did they promise that, but that was like the first thing to go within a week. Like, that's a big ask.
I don't think it was that long, because they did have a committee. I'm not sure how long the committee went, but they had a committee, and they came out with there were multiple. It was a multiple party. All the parties had representation. They came out with a recommendation that they all agreed on, and then Trudeau looked at it and said, "Oh, hang on a minute. This isn't a ranked choice. This isn't what we because ranked choice would benefit the middle of the range party or the centrists." Right. And he said, "I don't want this." Because it would have been a fair representation of people.
Doesn't fit our plans.
Yeah, so I don't know when it was. We can certainly do the research on the times on that one. But I went to a meeting by one of the people. I was in Winnipeg.
I don't remember it being very long. Yeah, even if it was 6 weeks, it wasn't very long. That's like a month and a bit, right? So
we'll definitely proportional representation is absolutely one of those things we will be looking into and we'll be talking about in one way or another.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And I wish I could find
that. That's going to be a good one.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So that's a kind of an overview. We kind of get a little taste of what it's going to be like on the podcast. We'll be a little bit more focused, a little more. We'll have a few more details, a little bit of research done, and so that's kind of what it's going to look like. So before we go, I just want to give you the web address again. So it's fixingtheworld.ca. And go check that out, bookmark that, and we'll have all the links to all the podcasts or all the places you can get the podcast as they become available. And I think this podcast has gone long enough. It's probably going to be our first official podcast. I wasn't expecting this intro to go quite as long as it did, but I think this is actually going to work rather well for an introduction on the site. And then we're going to be recording another one when we're done offline. So thanks everybody for joining us.
And that one will be audio only.
Yes.
This was a little teaser for you guys.
Yeah, just
we're not opposed to having video, but the idea is that this is going to be audio.
Just want to do something a little bit different from what we've been doing. Then you're not distracted by what's on the screen. We can have some serious conversations. And maybe we will do some live streaming or some recorded. Actually, we got Pauline Santor just to let me know a note. Thank you. Sounds like what we are doing through here in the USA. Oh, we are going through. Sorry, yes, yeah. It's all very similar stuff. We've got Scheer, who wants to be our Trump, and we've got Trudeau, who is our Obama, right? Yeah, choice. I mean, you've got pretty versus not pretty. Policies are equally horrible. Anyhow, we're digging in a little too deeper than we wanted to for a quick intro. So thank you very much, Pauline, for hanging around, listening, and for that statement there. That was great. Really appreciate it. And we'll catch you soon. We'll definitely be promoting this a little bit on the Invisible Man show as well. Just let you know where to find us. And we'll catch you probably in a few days if this one will go live. Thanks a lot.
All right, on. Take care, guys.
Bye.
He's gonna fight.